Welcome back to the deep dive. What if the reason you can't speak a new language isn't because you aren't studying enough,
Right.
but actually because you're studying way too much?
Which is such a crazy thought.
Yeah.
Right, because we're taught the exact opposite.
Exactly. Today, we are looking at a source that makes a pretty radical claim. The idea is that anything more than 10 minutes of practice a day might actually be destroying your fluency.
Yeah, it's a total paradigm shift.
We're unpacking a framework for you today called the 30-Day Blueprint for English Fluency. It's sourced from a really highly structured language learning guide. And, the reason we chose this particular material for the deep dive is that it just completely dismantles the traditional model of education that most of us grew up with.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it goes right for the throat of that idea that complex skills require, like, grueling, brain-melting hours of desk work.
Because, we've all been there.
We have. The traditional model practically guarantees burnout. You decide to learn a language, you buy a massive stack of textbooks.
You download like 3 different apps.
Right, exactly. And you grind for 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
But by day 6, your cognitive load is totally maxed out. So you skip a day.
And then the guilt sets in.
Yeah, the guilt is heavy. And by week 2, those textbooks are just gathering dust on your nightstand.
It's a universal struggle.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the source material we're analyzing today flips that whole script. The primary goal of this 30-day challenge isn't to reach, flawless native-level perfection by the end of the month.
Which is a relief, honestly.
Right. It's actually about a fundamental transformation in habit building and confidence. It's driven by this psychological principle that small, heavily constrained daily actions are the actual engine of massive neurological change.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we aren't supposed to lock ourselves in a library to get fluent, what is the actual mechanism at play here?
Well,
Looking at the blueprint, the very first rule is almost suspiciously simple. You practice for at least 10 minutes every day. That's the baseline.
just 10 minutes.
Yeah, just 10. But there's a fascinating secondary instruction regarding failure. If you miss a day, you don't double up the next day. You don't punish yourself. You literally just pick it up tomorrow as if nothing happened.
Which is so hard to do.
It is. It seems the authors are actually attacking the idea of willpower altogether. It's like brushing your teeth.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Doing it for 2 minutes every day prevents decay, whereas brushing for 2 hours straight once a month is just going to ruin your gums.
Could destroy your gums, yeah. What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of task friction.
Task friction.
Yeah, so when you block out an hour for studying, your brain immediately perceives that as a high-effort, high-friction task.
Like climbing a mountain.
Exactly. So if you're tired from work, your amygdala, which is the part of the brain that processes stress and threat, it essentially flags that 1-hour study session as a threat to your remaining energy reserves.
Oh, wow. So your brain is literally trying to protect you from studying.
Yes. Your brain will actively invent excuses to avoid it. You'll suddenly feel the urge to clean your kitchen or, doom scroll. But by artificially capping the requirement at 10 minutes, the blueprint bypasses that stress response entirely.
Because 10 minutes isn't a threat.
Exactly. 10 minutes doesn't trigger the brain's resistance. It's too small to fail.
It's basically an end run around our own procrastination mechanisms. We only procrastinate when the mountain looks too steep to climb. If you tell yourself you only have to walk up a single step, the psychological friction just evaporates.
It's so clever.
But the instruction to completely ignore a missed day, to just drop at the guilt and move on, that's the part that really subverts standard learning advice. Usually there's a heavy emphasis on streaks, right? And like punishing yourself for breaking the chain.
Yeah, the authors are navigating around something psychologists actually call the what the hell effect.
The what the hell effect.
Yeah, it's a real term in behavioral science. When people are on a strict diet, say, and they eat one cookie, they don't just stop at one.
Because the streak is already broken?
Right. The streak is broken, the guilt sets in, they say, well, what the hell? And they eat the whole box.
I have definitely done that.
We all have. And the same exact thing applies to language learning. If you miss Tuesday, the traditional mindset makes you feel like a failure, so you abandon Wednesday and Thursday too.
So the whole week is ruined over one missed day.
Exactly. But by explicitly building forgiveness into the system, the blueprint ensures that a single missed day remains a minor blip rather than a total system collapse. Consistency doesn't mean unbroken perfection. It just means a high frequency of repetition over a long time horizon.
I love that. But Lowering the time barrier to 10 minutes creates a very obvious new problem now.
Which is,
You only have 10 minutes. Time becomes an incredibly scarce resource. If you only have 600 seconds a day to learn a language, you really can't afford to waste a single one of them on inefficient
that
methods.
is so true. Which brings us to the blueprint's second major rule, and it's a sharp pivot away from standard classroom curricula.
No more textbooks.
No more textbooks. The source explicitly warns against memorizing long lists of vocabulary. No flashcards of farm animals, no lists of abstract colors, no trying to memorize 50 random nouns a day.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here because this goes against every instinct I have about language.
Go for it.
Wait a second, if I want to be fluent, don't I inherently need a massive dictionary-level vocabulary rattling around in my brain? Like if I'm traveling or working in a new language, I feel like I need to know the word for everything from a stapler to, I don't know, existential dread, just to survive a basic interaction.
That's a super common assumption, but the blueprint argues it's a massive trap. And this is primarily due to how our brains handle memory consolidation.
Okay, how so?
There's a concept in linguistics and data science called Zipf's law. It essentially states that in any language, a tiny fraction of the vocabulary makes up the vast majority of daily speech.
Like the 80-20 rule.
Exactly like that.
Mm.
In English, just the top 1,000 words account for about 85% of everything spoken in daily life.
Wait, really? 85%?
Yes. So memorizing lists of obscure words you'll never use is a terrible misallocation of your 10 minutes. The brain is ruthless about efficiency.
It just dumps what it doesn't need.
Right. Through a process called synaptic pruning, your brain will physically delete the neural pathways for words you memorize but don't actively use in your real life.
That makes total sense. You can't learn how to ride a bike just by listening to an audio guide about bicycles. You have to actually pedal. Oh, wait. Earlier I was thinking about vocabulary. It's more like trying to learn how to play tennis by memorizing the serial numbers on the rackets instead of actually swinging them.
That's a perfect analogy.
You're storing data, but you aren't building a functional skill. So the blueprint dictates that we should only focus on highly practical phrases that map directly onto our daily lived reality.
Precisely. The blueprint optimizes for pure utility. You need the vocabulary that allows you to order food, describe your specific job, or express agreement and disagreement.
Right.
If you spend your 10 minutes memorizing the English words for exotic zoo animals, you might pass a written vocabulary quiz. But you'll totally freeze up when the barista asks what kind of milk you want in your coffee.
Because you've never practiced it.
The learning has to serve a functional purpose immediately, or the brain just discards the information.
Okay, so let's say I've curated my vocabulary. I've ditched the random flashcards, I've got my 10 minutes, and I know exactly which practical phrases I need for my day-to-day life.
You're primed and ready.
Yeah, I have the words in my head. But having the data in my brain doesn't mean my mouth knows what to do with it. Moving from knowing a word to actually speaking it in real time is notoriously the hardest barrier for any learner.
Oh, absolutely. This is the transition from input to output, and it's where the blueprint identifies the most widespread mistake learners make.
Which is?
The over-reliance on passive consumption.
Oh, the passive consumption illusion is so pervasive.
It really is.
We convince ourselves that if we just binge enough Netflix shows in English or listen to enough podcasts while doing the dishes, fluency will just magically seep into our brains through osmosis.
Just kind of absorb it.
Yeah, we mistake the ability to understand a language with the ability to actually speak it. And the analogy I brought up earlier works perfectly here. You can't learn how to ride a bike just by listening to an audio guide about bicycles. You have to actually pedal.
Yes, exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the neurology of language processing. Comprehension and speech production are handled by entirely different regions of the brain.
Okay, break that down for us.
When you're passively listening to a podcast, you're primarily engaging Wernicke's area, which is the part responsible for understanding language.
Okay, Wernicke's area. Got it.
But when you need to speak, you have to engage Broca's area, which handles the complex assembly of grammar and the physical execution of speech. So, training Wernicke's area doesn't automatically train Broca's area.
That distinction makes so much sense. I mean, you can't train for a marathon by watching other people run, no matter how closely you study their form.
Right.
The blueprint mandates that you read sentences aloud and practice conversations daily, because speaking isn't just a mental exercise. It's a highly complex physical sport.
It really is a sport.
You have to coordinate the muscles in your jaw, your tongue, your lips, and your vocal cords to produce entirely new sound frequencies.
It requires literal muscle memory. As you physically speak the words out loud, you're triggering myelination in the brain.
Myelination.
Yeah, myelin is this fatty tissue that wraps around your neural pathways,
Like insulation on a wire.
exactly like insulation on a wire. The more you physically perform an action like speaking a foreign phrase,
Yeah.
the thicker that myelin becomes, which allows the electrical signals in your brain to travel faster.
That's incredible.
That physical act of speaking out loud is what transforms a slow, clunky sentence into a fast, automatic reflex.
And the authors take this active production requirement a step further to tackle another massive bottleneck. They introduce this cognitive exercise where you actively practice thinking in English during your mundane daily activities.
This is one of my favorite parts.
It's so smart. So if you're making breakfast, you aren't just doing it silently, you're narrating the process in your head in English. Like, I'm cracking the egg, the pan is hot, I need to flip it.
Yeah, that internal narration is a targeted attack on what linguists refer to as the translation lag.
Ah, I love that term. The translation lag is the absolute killer of conversational flow.
It ruins it.
It's that painful deer-in-the-headlights silence that happens when someone asks you a question in a new language. And it's exhausting because of the cognitive gymnastics involved.
With a lot of steps.
Right. First, you hear the English phrase. Second, you translate it into your native language. Third, you formulate your answer in your native language. Fourth, you translate that answer back into English. And finally, you speak.
It's a 5-step process for every single sentence.
It's like your brain is acting as a severely overworked UN interpreter, just constantly sprinting back and forth between two different soundproof booths.
You'd be exhausted.
You can't maintain that level of cognitive drain for more than a few minutes before you get a headache and just want to end the conversation.
And that's why the internal narration exercise is designed to short-circuit that translation loop.
How does it do that?
Well, when you look at an egg in your kitchen and force yourself to think the word egg without passing through your native language first, you are directly mapping the new vocabulary onto the physical concept. You are completely eliminating the middleman.
By doing this during low-stakes activities.
Right, like cooking or driving. You're building the neural infrastructure to process the language directly. So when you eventually get into a real high-stakes conversation, the translation lag is just gone. You hear English, and you respond in English.
We're really starting to see a very cohesive system emerge here. We're keeping the friction incredibly low with a 10-minute time limit. We're highly selective about our vocabulary, ignoring the fluff to focus on utility.
We're building physical muscle memory by speaking out loud.
Right, and we're rewiring our internal monologue to eliminate the translation lag. Now, on paper, and certainly on day one of this challenge, this sounds incredibly empowering.
The architecture of the routine is solid. I mean, it really is. But the authors of the source material are highly realistic about human nature.
Because we always fall off the wagon.
Always. They know that a solid routine isn't enough on its own. By day 14 or day 15, the novelty wears off. The 10 minutes start to feel less like an exciting experiment and more like a chore.
And the intrinsic motivation just drops.
It tanks.
That's the graveyard of self-improvement. It's the middle of the journey where the initial dopamine hit of starting something new has completely evaporated, but you haven't yet reached the mastery phase where the skill itself is rewarding.
It's the toughest part.
So how does the blueprint keep the engine running when you're slogging through the middle of the month?
They solve this by building a highly specific, tangible tracking mechanism into the 30-day timeline.
Okay.
On day 1, before you do anything else, the blueprint requires you to record a 1-minute audio or video introduction of yourself speaking in English.
Just a basic intro.
Yeah, you just say who you are, what you do, and why you're taking the challenge. You save that file, and you do not look at it again.
Okay.
Then you execute the daily habits. On day 30, you record a brand new 1-minute introduction, and the final step of the challenge is playing those 2 recordings back to back.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this directly addresses the psychology of comparison.
It does.
Think about what usually destroys a learner's confidence. It's benchmarking themselves against the wrong data set. You watch an American movie or you listen to a native speaker order coffee, and you compare your stumbling, broken sentences to their effortless, lifelong fluency.
It's a completely asymmetrical comparison.
It's so unfair to yourself.
Yeah, you're comparing a brain that has 10 hours of total English exposure to a brain that has tens of thousands of hours of constant myelination and contextual encoding. It triggers massive ego depletion and feelings of inadequacy.
But this day 1 versus day 30 recording task isolates the variables. It removes the native speaker from the equation entirely. You are forced to use your past self as your one and only benchmark. You aren't listening to see if you sound perfectly native. You're listening to hear if the person on day 30 pauses a little less than the person on day 1. You're listening to see if the pronunciation is slightly crisper or, if the vocabulary retrieval is just a fraction of a second faster.
The mechanism at work here actually counters a cognitive bias known as incremental progress blindness.
Incremental progress blindness.
Yeah, humans are terribly unequipped to notice gradual day-by-day changes. I mean, you don't notice your hair growing, right?
No, of course not.
And you don't notice your vocabulary expanding when you're only studying 10 minutes a day. The daily growth is literally microscopic. If you rely on daily feeling, you'll assume you aren't making any progress at all.
Because Tuesday feels exactly as difficult as Monday.
Exactly. The brain needs stark contrast to recognize change. By juxtaposing the day 1 recording directly against the day 30 recording, the blueprint manufactures that contrast.
Oh, I see.
Suddenly, that invisible microscopic daily progress is aggregated and made undeniably tangible. You hear the difference in your own voice.
And that auditory proof triggers a massive dopamine reward loop. When you hear the improvement, your brain registers the 10-minute daily effort as a successful investment.
It's the ultimate proof of concept.
It proves the core thesis of the blueprint, which is that highly focused, consistent microactions actually work. Once you have that undeniable proof of your own capability, the habit becomes self-sustaining.
You're hooked.
Yeah, you don't stop at day 30 because you genuinely want to see what day 60 sounds like.
It shifts your mindset from, I am struggling to learn English, to, I am successfully improving my English every single day.
That's a huge shift.
It is. That shift in identity is the actual prize of the 30-day challenge. The English fluency is honestly just a byproduct of having built a bulletproof system of consistency.
Let's pull all of these threads together for a crisp recap of the blueprint.
Tell the good.
We started with the realization that hours of grinding only leads to burnout. Instead, the architecture of success requires just 10 minutes a day and absolutely zero guilt if life gets in the way and you miss a session.
Right.
You ruthlessly prune your vocabulary lists, ditching the flashcards of random nouns in favor of practical phrases you'll actually use to navigate your life.
Say goodbye to the zoo animals?
Exactly. You get out of the passive consumption trap by speaking sentences allowed to physically rewire your brain's motor functions, and you narrate your daily chores in English to kill the translation lag.
Kill the UN interpreter.
Yes. Finally, you capture your baseline on day 1 so that by day 30, you have concrete, dopamine-boosting proof of your own evolution. So what does this all mean? We opened this deep dive looking at a framework for language learning, but we've actually spent the last few minutes deconstructing the mechanics of human habit, psychological friction, and neurological rewiring.
The implications of this blueprint go far beyond learning vocabulary.
They really do.
It forces a reevaluation of how we approach any overwhelming task. I mean, if just 10 minutes of focused, highly constrained, and forgiving daily effort can bypass our brain's threat responses and physically rewire our neural pathways to unlock a new language in just 30 days,
Yeah.
what other intimidating, seemingly impossible skills in your life are just 10 minutes a day away from being mastered?
That is a phenomenal thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you take these insights into the mechanics of learning, keep questioning your assumptions, and most importantly, start putting these 10-minute micro habits to work for you today. See you next time.